Ash drifted like black snow across the battlefield of Zirith Prime. Broken machines smoldered in the distance, their metal frames twisted into grotesque sculptures by plasma fire. King Varric Ironclaw dragged himself across the dirt, his talons scraping furrows in the blood-soaked ground. His once magnificent armor was shattered, the golden crest of his crown bent inward against his skull. Each breath came as a guttural rasp. Around him, the corpses of his warriors lay silent, their honor discarded by the very council they had bled for. He paused, clutching his side. The gash beneath his ribs still poured dark blood. His mind swam with rage as much as pain. A memory replayed, the council chamber, gleaming with polished marble and jeweled banners, filled with the voices of races who had once sworn allegiance to him. Chancellor Vaedros's cold words echoed. If Varric falls, the Drathari will fracture. His survival will only fuel their war hunger. Let him perish. It is convenient. The chamber had murmured in agreement. Not one voice rose in protest. Allies, enemies, neutral powers alike, all had voted to leave him. The great warrior king, once celebrated as the unbreakable shield of the galaxy, had been cast aside like a spent weapon. Varric growled low in his throat, dragging himself another meter toward a shattered pike lodged in the earth. He gripped it, and used it as a crutch to pull himself upright. His knees shook under his weight. His crown slipped free, clattering into the dirt. For the first time in decades he let it fall, unwilling to lift the symbol of a kingdom already abandoned. He staggered forward. Smoke obscured the horizon, and through the haze he saw the broken spires of Zirith's cities, glass towers reduced to jagged teeth. This world had once been a jewel of the Drathari dominion. Now it was a tomb. His tomb. His communicator, still fused into the remnants of his armor, sparked to life. The council's broadcast droned, its voice mechanical, stripped of empathy. King Varric Ironclaw, status confirmed lost. The Drathari threat is neutralized. The matter is closed. The consortium proceeds with peace negotiations. The words cut deeper than his wounds. Neutralized. Lost. Closed. His entire legacy reduced to bureaucratic phrasing. Varric's claws tightened on the pike until the shaft cracked. He bared his fangs, whispering through blood-flecked lips. So this is loyalty. So this is honor. He stumbled onward, determined not to die lying down. If he must fall, it would be standing, a king to the last. His vision blurred, colors bleeding together until the world became little more than shapes and shadows. He remembered faces, his warriors, his family, the countless soldiers who had marched at his command. He had led them into battle under banners promising unity and respect. Now their bones littered the soil, abandoned as he had been. Hours passed, though time lost meaning. The fires burned low. Night bled into the ruins, stars flickering faintly above the smoke. Each step became heavier, until even dragging his body forward demanded everything he had left. His heart thundered slower, weaker. Varric leaned against a broken wall and slid down, his massive frame finally giving way. The pike slipped from his claws. He pressed his back to the cold stone and exhaled sharply. Enough, he muttered to no one. I will not crawl for ghosts. Closing his eyes, he waited for silence. His chest rose shallowly, his breath rattled. He thought of his enemies, Vaedros foremost, smiling as the council condemned him. He thought of his allies, cowards, all of them, too afraid of the Velari Empire to risk dissent. He thought of his people, who would awaken tomorrow to news that their king was gone, their empire adrift. For the first time in his life, despair won. He lowered his head, conceding to the inevitable. Static burst across the communicator. At first he ignored it, assuming it was the death rattle of broken circuitry. Then a voice cut through, gritty, human, unmistakably alive. Unidentified life form detected. Large, humanoid, biosigns faint but present. Hold on, we're coming. Varric blinked, stunned. The voice repeated, clearer this time, carrying urgency and grit. He shook his head slowly, half believing it a cruel hallucination. No one was coming. No one ever came. But then he heard it, the distant thrum of thrusters, a low growl growing louder against the quiet night. The ground trembled faintly under the wash of landing engines. Through the smoke, a wedge of light pierced the darkness as a dropship descended, kicking up ash in swirling spirals. Varick's throat rumbled in disbelief. He tried to rise, but his body betrayed him, and he fell to one knee. He could only watch as figures in matte gray armor emerged, their visors glowing faint blue. Not Drathari. Not Velari. Humans. He had seen them before, observers on the fringes of council wars, diplomats ignored in chambers of power. Small, underestimated, mocked for their fragile worlds and their stubborn independence. They were not meant to be here, not meant to interfere. Yet here they were, rushing toward him across the ash, their voices crackling in his failing ears. Target located. Still alive. Get him stabilized. Hands seized him, firm, steady. Varick snarled weakly, forcing out a rasp. Why? Why humans? A helmeted figure leaned close, voice sharp but steady. Because no one deserves to die forgotten. That's not our way. Varick tried to answer, but darkness claimed him before the words left his throat. The last thing he felt was the grip of unfamiliar hands refusing to let him fall. King Varick woke to light stabbing his eyes. For a moment he thought he had crossed into death, but the hum of engines and the rhythm of filtered air told him otherwise. His body rested on a padded stretcher, restraints keeping his massive frame secure. His wounds no longer burned with open fire, they pulsed beneath layers of unfamiliar biofoam. He shifted slightly, muscles straining, and the motion drew the attention of a figure beside him. A human soldier, helmet removed, leaned closer. His face was lined with grit and exhaustion, but his eyes carried steady focus. You're awake, the man said. His voice lacked the reverence most beings offered royalty. It was flat, almost casual. Varick's throat rumbled. Why am I not ash on the ground? Because my squad dragged you out before you bled out. The soldier crossed his arms. You're lucky. Another hour and we'd be hauling a corpse. Varick studied him. Humans were small compared to Drathari, yet this man stood as though weight and danger meant little. Why? Varick growled. Even my own kind abandoned me. You risked lives for nothing. The soldier's lips twitched, more irritation than amusement. No one gets left behind. Doesn't matter if you're king, soldier, or stranger. That's not how we operate. Varick barked a weak laugh that ended in a cough. Fools! Your code will kill you. Maybe, the soldier admitted. But we'll die knowing we didn't turn our backs. He tapped the stretcher's rail. Now shut up and let the medics work. The dropship jolted as it entered orbit. Through a narrow viewport, Varick glimpsed the curve of Earth. Blue oceans, scattered clouds, continents scarred but alive. It was not the jewel of galactic dominion, yet it radiated persistence. Humanity had survived countless wars, extinction attempts, and council neglect. The sight stirred something he had thought lost, respect. Hours later, Varick opened his eyes again in a sterile white chamber. Machines hummed softly, monitoring his vitals. A female doctor stood nearby, adjusting a holographic display. She turned, meeting his gaze without flinching. You heal faster than expected, she said. Tough physiology. We stabilized the fractures, sealed the major tears. You'll walk within days. Varick tilted his head. You saved me when entire fleets refused. Why? Her eyes narrowed slightly, as though she found the question insulting. Because you were dying in front of us. That's reason enough. He stared at her, searching for guile or political motive, but found none. Humans spoke directly, without the ornate riddles the council favored. It unsettled him more than deception. The door slid open. A tall man in diplomatic garb entered, broad-shouldered, silver at the temples, eyes sharp. He carried himself not like a bureaucrat, but like a soldier forced into politics. King Varick, he greeted. I am Ambassador Hale. Welcome to Earth's orbital station. Varick pushed himself upright, ignoring the doctor's protests. His voice came out low but steady. You defied the Council by saving me. That choice will cost you. Hale inclined his head. We're aware. The Council already sent messages condemning our actions. His tone hardened. But Earth answers to its own conscience, not Vedros's orders. Varric studied him carefully. You risk sanctions, isolation, perhaps war, all for a king not of your blood. Hale met his gaze without hesitation. When we fought our wars alone, no one came. We know what abandonment feels like. We swore we'd never repeat that mistake. The words struck deeper than any blade. Varric clenched his claws, recalling his warriors' corpses scattered across Zereth Prime. The Council had written them off without hesitation. Yet here stood a species mocked as weak, declaring loyalty without obligation. In the following days, Varric roamed the station's corridors. His towering presence drew stares, but no fear, only curiosity. He saw children laughing in zero-gravity chambers, engineers repairing bulkheads, soldiers drilling with quiet determination. These people lacked the polished technology of the Velari or the endless fleets of the Consortium, yet they carried something rarer: resilience. One evening, he stood at a viewport, watching Earth rotate beneath him. The scars of bombardments marred several regions, cities rebuilt from rubble glinting like scattered gems. A young Marine approached cautiously. "Sir," the Marine said, voice nervous. "It's an honor to have you here." Varric glanced down, unimpressed. "Do you know what honor is, human?" The Marine swallowed. "Doing what's right, even when no one else will." Varric said nothing for a long moment. Finally, he turned back to the planet. "Perhaps you understand more than most species in that grand chamber." The reprieve ended quickly. The Council's fury reached the station within days. A transmission from Chancellor Vedros filled the command center's main screen, his elongated face twisted with disdain. "Earth has interfered where it is neither wanted nor authorized. Harboring a condemned warlord threatens the stability of the galaxy. You will release Varric Ironclaw immediately, or face sanctions." Ambassador Hale stood in the center of the room, arms folded. "You left him to die." "We didn't. That's the whole difference." Vedros sneered. "You cling to sentiment. The galaxy has no patience for such weakness. Return him, or Earth will regret this defiance." The transmission cut before Hale could reply. Silence hung in the command room. Officers exchanged uneasy looks, knowing the threat was real. Varric stepped forward, his voice resonant. "You saved me against their will. Their vengeance will fall on you now. Why endure this?" Hale turned slowly. "Because honor means nothing if it's convenient. It matters when it costs you." Varric stared at him. The words, simple yet unyielding, rang louder than any council proclamation. For the first time since his betrayal, he felt something other than rage, something perilously close to gratitude. That night, Varric entered the command hall uninvited. He strode to the center, his frame filling the chamber, and sank to one knee before Hale and the assembled officers. His clawed fist struck the deck, the sound echoing through the room. "When my allies left me to rot, you lifted me from the ashes," Varric declared. His voice carried the weight of a king's oath. "From this day, my life is bound to yours. My strength, my blade, my vengeance, belong to Earth." Gasps rippled through the chamber. Soldiers who moments ago saw him as an alien now stood straighter, pride swelling in their chests. Hale did not smile, but his eyes hardened with understanding. "Then we stand together, Varric Ironclaw. Whatever comes next, we face it side by side." For the first time in many cycles, Varric felt certainty. The Council had abandoned him. His empire had collapsed. But humanity, against all odds, had given him a new purpose. And the galaxy would learn the price of betrayal. The Galactic Council chamber glittered with gold and crystal, its dome reflecting the light of 100 star systems. Delegates of every empire filled their seats, murmuring in uneasy anticipation. At the center, High Chancellor Vedros stood tall, his silver robes flowing like molten light. His narrow eyes gleamed with contempt as he raised his voice. "Once again, humanity violates the order of the galaxy," Vedros declared. His words echoed, amplified by hidden projectors. They harbor a warlord condemned by this body, disrupting balance for their own vanity. This cannot stand. Murmurs spread like fire. Some delegates nodded in agreement, others whispered doubts. At the rear of the chamber, the doors swung open. Ambassador Hale entered, flanked by a small escort. Beside him strode King Varric Ironclaw, armored in reforged plating, the scars of battle still visible on his scaled hide. The sight silenced the room. Many had already written him off as dead. Now he stood alive, taller than the tallest guards, radiating fury barely contained. Vedros's face tightened. Blasphemy! This chamber declared you lost. You have no voice here. Varric's growl rolled across the hall. You lost your right to silence me when you left me to die. His claws flexed against his armor. I was loyal. I bled for your so-called order. And you, every one of you, turned your back. But humanity did not. They alone carried honor when the rest of you buried it. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted over one another. Some demanded sanctions against Earth, others questioned Vedros's judgment. Ambassador Hale stepped forward, his tone calm but edged with steel. Order built on betrayal isn't order. It's rot. Humanity didn't break the peace, you did, when you left a king to perish because it was convenient. Vedros slammed his staff of office against the dais, silencing the hall. Do not mistake defiance for strength. Earth is small, untested. You presume loyalty will shield you, but loyalty cannot stop fleets. His lips curled. And as we speak, a fleet already surrounds your world. The chamber stilled. Hale's jaw clenched. Varric's eyes burned. Far across the void, above Earth, the Chancellor's threat unfolded. The Velari fleet descended in formation, black holes blotting out the stars. Cruisers and dreadnoughts spread across orbit, their weapons trained on the blue planet below. The blockade was absolute. On Earth's orbital defense ring, alarms blared. Crews rushed to stations. Commanders shouted orders over comms as orbital cannons warmed, their barrels glowing faint red. This is Commander Reyes. A voice crackled across every channel. The Velari think we'll bow. Let's show them Earth doesn't kneel. Human ships undocked, sleek frigates, heavier cruisers, and 2 prototype dreadnoughts hidden from Council eyes until this very moment. Smaller than their enemies, but built for precision and ferocity. On the flagship Resolute, Varric stood beside Hale, towering over the command deck. His presence unsettled the crew, yet his voice cut through fear. They abandoned me. They will abandon you. But today, we prove betrayal is weaker than unity. Stand firm, humans. Fight as if you've been betrayed 1,000 times, for today, we are remembered. The crew roared their assent. The battle began with fire. Velari cruisers unleashed plasma barrages, lancing through the void. Earth's orbital cannons thundered in response, beams of concentrated energy carving through enemy shields. The first wave of Velari frigates disintegrated under the assault. On the Resolute, Varric gripped the railing, watching the tactical display. Strike their flanks, he ordered. They rely on brute force. Break their formation, and their discipline crumbles. Reyes obeyed without hesitation. Human frigates darted like knives, targeting weak points in the blockade. Explosions lit the void, shockwaves rippling against the hulls. Vedros's flagship loomed at the center of the enemy armada, a leviathan bristling with weapons. Its shields flared as it advanced, dwarfing Earth's defenses. Vedros himself appeared on comms, sneering down at Hale and Varric. Fitting, he said. Your saviors will burn with you. Humanity will be remembered not for honor, but for arrogance. Varric stepped into view, his eyes blazing. No, Vedros. You will be remembered for cowardice. The enemy flagship opened fire, its main cannons unleashing storms of plasma. The Resolute shuddered, shields straining. Systems flickered. Crews clung to their stations as alarms wailed. Return fire! Reyes barked. The prototype dreadnoughts answered. Their spinal cannons discharged beams of compressed energy, brighter than suns, slamming into the enemy flagship's shields. The barrier flared, held for a moment, then buckled. Explosions tore across the Velari Leviathan's hull. Fires spread, secondary detonations ripping through its decks. Vedros's face vanished from the comms, replaced by static. On the Resolute, silence held for a heartbeat. Then cheers erupted. Varric bared his fangs in a victorious snarl. So ends the Chancellor who bartered loyalty for convenience. But the battle was not yet done. Remaining Velari ships faltered without command. Some fought desperately, others broke and fled. Humanity pressed the advantage, their smaller fleet striking with brutal efficiency. Within an hour, the blockade shattered. Wreckage drifted across orbit, burning like falling stars against the night sky. Back in the council chamber, live feeds of the battle filled the holoscreens. Delegates watched as the once invincible Velari fleet crumbled under human resistance, and the leadership of the very king they had abandoned. Varric turned, his voice filling the chamber. The galaxy left me to die. Humanity alone chose otherwise. Remember this, strength is not in numbers, or fleets, or polished halls of power. Strength is in loyalty. And loyalty is what you all have forgotten. The silence was suffocating. Not a single delegate spoke. Ambassador Hale added quietly, Humanity may be small, but we stand where others falter. If the Council cannot understand that, then Earth will walk its own path. The weight of his words lingered. Even the fiercest critics shifted uneasily, their certainty fractured. When the session ended, Varric and Hale returned to the Resolute. The king stood at the viewport, watching Earth's surface glow beneath the stars. You gave me more than survival, Varric said, his voice low. You gave me purpose when all else was lost. He looked down at Hale. From this day, the Drathri who remain will stand beside you. Together we will carve a future not ruled by betrayal, but by honor. Hale nodded once. Then let's make sure the galaxy never forgets. Varric placed a clawed hand against the glass, gazing at the planet below. For the first time since his betrayal, hope burned where only rage had lived. Humanity, mocked as weak and insignificant, had risen not with cruelty but with loyalty, and in doing so, had shaken the foundations of the galaxy itself. The final words rumbled from his chest, a vow carried into the stars. When all others abandoned me, humanity did not. Let every world remember this day.